Hello everyone, Sidanet here with another update from the Avalanche ecosystem. Today, for the very first time from my new office. Excuse the mess, it's still not completely done. But also very importantly, today I have cryptofish with me, cryptofish of Trader Joe, which is launching tomorrow. Hi cryptofish, thanks for joining.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me here.
Most welcome, and thank you for coming on. You want to get straight into it? Maybe you could tell me a little bit about yourself and who is Trader Joe and who is the rest of the team behind it.
Sure. So my name is Cryptofish. I am a software engineer by heart. My background, I went to school, did a master's in computer science. I had a stint at Google. I worked at a CEX, specializing in derivatives. My story with Avalanche, well, my story with crypto started in 2017. I was kind of lucky, just got in before the big ICO boom. And then when Avalanche came out, I just got involved really. I mean, first of all, I got into the sale. I didn't know much about it at the time, but my friend who's a massive Link Marine basically told me like, buy this. And I feel like with Link Marines, you don't really like defy them. You just you don't argue. You just do what they say, right? So
you just accept it.
I just accepted it. I didn't know much about it, but then afterwards I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, like Snowflake consensus and all that kind of stuff. But when the first started sprouting up in February, I just got myself involved. I've always wanted to do like crypto development, and I found this a good opportunity. So I first got involved with Snowball, and then later with a bit of PandaSwap. And then after that, I was helping out with Sherpa before I branched off and started Trader Joe. The other co-founder is Murloc. He's a longtime family friend. We've known each other since we're like babies. He's basically like a brother to me.
Cool.
He's also a developer, but his specialty is like product management. He's just like one of those guys who's all about optimizing the small things, which I think is really important. Sometimes in crypto, we're all about like the big innovations, but we really feel like it's the small little tweaks that really get users to stick.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, like the usability and the user experience. Sometimes just, crypto can be very difficult to understand for newcomers just because it's so complex and people build, Lego bricks on Lego bricks, and then, the first brick is for some too difficult. So I agree with that, with his vision there. Is it just the two of you?
Yeah, so it started off, I mean, in terms of engineers, like there's only two of us. We actually just hired an intern. He's the guy who did our Joe bot. He's also done like the Sherpa bot. I think he's doing the Snowball bot. But yeah, he's a student from France, a really sharp kid. We have some interesting project for him, which we're going to reveal later on in this video.
I know about it, yes. Very excited for it. Cool. And then maybe tell me a little bit. So like you said you were working on Sherpa, then you went into Trader Joe. Like what was the catalyst? Like what made you think, no, we need to do Trader Joe right now?
Yeah, this whole idea like was conceived around mid-April. And I think that was the height when like, I think people were getting very angsty with Pangolin. Like, Pangolin was started off by Das Connor, and then it says like community driven, and they said we're going to turn on treasury and governance 3 months later. I think it actually became like 4 months later. And there was this like 4 month period where the Pangolin token was just being dumped. People were crying for the farm awards to be tweaked. And it was just that time, like people started getting angry, right? Like I know there was a few posts on the Pangolin forum. And we just felt like, as the flagship DEX, like a lot of how the whole ecosystem grows is very much driven by the main DEX, right? And I felt like, I think other people felt that Pangolin was probably holding us back. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, we just felt like, we didn't want to just like create a DEX. We wanted to really improve and solve the problems that we thought Pangolin had. And that's why we came up with 3 core values. So the first one is build fast. The second one is be innovative and different. and the third one is putting the Avalanche community first. And they're not just like random core values that we just threw out of a hat. It's like we purposely identified the 3 things that we thought Pangolin weren't doing very well on, and where we wanted to improve.
Cool. But then of course, one interesting question is, I think around the end of April, also just from a my channel perspective, we actually noticed that probably a lot of other AMMs were showing up. You mentioned PandaSwap, but also Lydia, have Canary as well, and a bunch of other ones, all basically being fairly similar sushi based very often AMMs, who probably also also wanted to take the Pangolin throne. Like, how is Trader Joe going to be different is my question.
Yeah. So actually, like, the whole idea started quite early, and we were in a massive rush to like get something out. And I think a lot of it was just down to like, we wanted to launch end of May or early June, and we're actually launching a month later. And I think a lot of it was down to like, once the market crashed, there was not so much of a buzz and the pressure anymore. And that, I think that was actually a good thing, because it made us really think, okay, what are we doing here? Are we just gonna launch another DEX? Like, there has to be something different. Like, we can't just say what we're gonna do differently. We actually have to show the people what we're gonna do differently. So that's why we spend more time thinking about the product, right? Like, whatever we're gonna be the 7th or 8th DEX. So whatever we launch has to be different. And we kind of felt, okay, you know what? Like, we're not gonna create a whole new protocol from scratch. It is gonna be forked from Uniswap. Like, that is the standard AMM model, but we can still do small incremental things to improve the DEX experience. So that's why we decided, okay, first things first, it has to have a completely new UI. So we've outsourced the UI design to this agency. This whole this is a bit of a backstory, but actually, we actually got rug pulled by our first UI designer. Like,
oh, really?
We were like so excited, like, oh yeah, let's go create this like new UI. When you found this guy on Dribble, and Dribble, like, you have to be careful on Dribble, because sometimes you get the most beautiful looking portfolios, but when it comes down to it, like, sometimes they just can't deliver. And that's what happened with this guy. So we paid him like $2,000. Well, paid him $1,000 up front, and he was supposed to do like a logo and a UI design, but he just basically like just changed the colors, and that's it, and like add some gradients, and we're like, shit, like, this is not getting anywhere. So we actually wasted a lot of time on that, actually. So after eating that loss, we're like, okay, let's be a little bit smart about this. So we actually like developed a interview process, interviewing like, I think 30, 40 agencies. And eventually we settled on one, which was like way more expensive, but we decided, like, let's just make this worth it. So, we're really proud of our UI design. Those guys have done a fantastic job. They're also not like, crypto DeFi degen. So in a sense, that's good, because, well, in a sense, it's bad because it takes them a long time. Like, a long portion of time was just spent on like teaching them how to DeFi.
Explain.
But the good thing
what
is,
everything means.
Yeah, like how to LP farm and all that kind of stuff. But the good thing is, like, they were seeing it from like virgin eyes, so they could develop a site mapping flow that made sense for them.
Yeah, so fresh users will be able to understand it, right?
Exactly. So yeah. Sorry, what was I talking about? I kind of rambled.
About the UI.
Yeah, the UIs. Yeah. So we're very proud about the UI. We spent a long time on it. All the small things like candlestick chart. Like, I think right now the only place that is charting Avalanche coins is ChartX, right? And you have to pay money for it. So we felt like, okay, this is kind of like low hanging fruit that we can do now. And then we learned about the double ward farming, and we're like, this is cool. Like, this is still a very new concept. I think it's only being done right now on Sushi and on Polygon. But now, we're gonna have Avalanche and Verso. First one's on Avalanche, and we actually have one more, which we're gonna. Well, I think by the time we release this video, I can announce it. But yeah, Elk is the third one, basically.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, and for me at least, that's the first. But maybe by the time this comes out, other people will have heard. But very cool. I would love to get into the UI with you, but maybe one more question first. The Pangolin rivalry. Of course, you've been, you've not been holding back on Twitter when it comes to Pangolin. You already mentioned a little bit. Also, that what the thought behind it was with Pangolin being the flagship and. Some things that you thought could be better. But also you worked on Snowball, you worked on Sherpa, so you must know Best Coder NA quite well, who is now on the Pangolin team. How is
Yep,
that
absolutely.
rivalry? How is it rivalry? Like how is it
Yeah, I
between you and
mean,
how is it like between Pangolin and Joe?
I think it's like people keep on saying, "Oh, you're inciting hatred into this community. You're dividing it." I mean, we don't hate Pangolin. Let's get that straight. And I get along with Best Coder very well. Like, we talk quite often. We chat about random things, right? Obviously, we won't share like what we're doing exactly because we know that we're working on competing projects. I've worked with Harry Seldon. He's a great guy. I have nothing against the team. A lot of my frustrations was just down to like how Pangolin has been run over the past few months, and a lot of that was not their fault. They've only just came on, But yeah, I mean, this rivalry I think has caused a bit of controversy. People are like, "Oh, you're creating factions." I actually think it's a good thing, I think competition is good. I feel like what we have done has actually put them on their toes a little bit and made them think harder about what they want to do.
Yeah.
To highlight an example, like, in early June, they came out with a roadmap, which was more just like, I wouldn't say a roadmap, it was just more like a list of things like, oh, let's do some partnerships, let's do some sex listings. And then after we came out with our roadmap, we're going to do a new UI, we're going to be DeFi focused, we're going to do lending. I think they also came out with another roadmap later on, which also like maybe they kind of realized, okay, we got to do more now. We need new features, and
They're
that's
actually
why they
being
said like we're going
challenged.
to
Yeah.
do a new UI. Yeah, they're being challenged, and I think that's great for the community. I think that's how we grow as one. Like we keep on challenging each other, and that's the way forward, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. But also happy to hear that there's no bad blood. But I agree completely that you got to challenge each other. That's the best way forward and come up with new things and everything. I think maybe now is then also a great moment to actually take a first look into it and walk me through the UI a little bit and what Trader Joe is going to look like, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. All right, so this is Trader
Awesome.
Joe. First sneak peek. This is our homepage. As you can see, everything is kind of 3D polygon look. I'll just go through the different tabs. So this is a candlestick chart. Let's go to Zap first. The goal is like to keep things clean. We don't want it to be too cluttered, but also make it not too boring. So that's why we have these illustrations. The farms haven't been hooked up yet. Should we talk about the pool and migrate things?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's just let's not keep people waiting. I'm sure that there's people here who've read on Twitter that they absolutely have to watch the pool part, so they're dying for it, I bet. So let's do it.
All right, so we're releasing this hat token. If you've heard of Unisocks or BNT, it's a very similar concept. There will only be 150 hat tokens, and each hat will be redeemable for a physical Trader Joe hat that the design is still in process, but it will come in the future. And so we're giving away 100. And in order to get one, you have to use this migrate feature over here. And what this migrate feature does is that it takes any existing Pangolin liquidity tokens and migrates it over to Trader Joe. So over here, you can see that I have some Waybacks USDT on Pangolin. You click here, jam that max button, and then migrate. And basically, once it finishes migrating, you should have one hat token, and that's it.
Is it the first 100 people who migrate, or is it like a lottery thing?
It's the first 100.
And can someone migrate multiple times for multiple tokens?
No, so only one address is eligible for one token.
Perfect. Good. Good. And so we went through a couple of these screens real quick, but SEP, that's the immediately from one token into a liquidity pool, right?
That's right. So the idea is like, I think Zap, right now we're still fixing it, but the idea is like you take a single token, let's say AVAX, and then you can convert it into an LP token, like let's say Joe ETH. So it basically like it sells half of the AVAX into Joe, half of the AVAX into ETH, and then puts the Joe and ETH into the Joe ETH pool, and then you get in return the LP token.
Yep. Makes sense. And everything else, pool, farm, earn, that's pretty much how we expect it to be, right?
Yes, everything is pretty standard. Yeah, I think a lot of this is pretty much done. We are still in the process of optimizing it, so what you see is not the final version, but yeah, everything should be ready for launch day.
Yeah, and then of course I want to talk briefly about the design of it. We already talked about it a little bit, but it's very 3D. Also in your trailers, there's been a lot of Minecraft. You told me there's a little bit of a philosophy behind that as well.
Yeah, so we thought a lot about our branding, right? And we really feel like every chain, like what makes crypto special, I think, obviously it's tech, right? But what really makes it special is the culture, and a certain identity associated with it. And we look at the different chains and the kind of culture, the branding, identity associated with it. And like if you take Ethereum, for example, they're very much about anime or like 8-bit CryptoPunks. Avalanche, we feel like hasn't really found its identity yet. It's still in the process of doing so. Well, we felt like, okay, Avalanche as a blockchain is an improved version of Ethereum, right? So it's basically going from like 8-bit to the next logical evolution, like 64-bit. So we think of it like, okay, it's like going from Super Nintendo to N64. So that's why we decided let's make things 3D. This is something that maybe could be, or we hope at least, that could be like a hit in Avalanche.
I think it's really cool, and I personally do like the style. It reminds me very much of Animal Crossing. I'm not sure if you've ever played that, but it's one of my favorite Nintendo games. Maybe last thing, to look at your roadmap, because we briefly talked about it. You put Pangolin on its toes because there is a lot of cool stuff in there. I think what was really fun to see on Twitter is that basically me, Omer Demirel, and Roger Luke pointed out different things about it that we like the most. And there's 3 phases. The first phase is what's going live now, right? With SEP and Migrate, which I think are really cool functions. If you could confirm.
Sorry. Yes, that's right. So the 3 phases, right? So actually, we just got asked this in our own Trader Joe AMA. I think crypto attracts a certain type of person that's very idealistic, and that makes a lot of sense. Like crypto is all about the future and ideas, and Murloc and I are very much about that too. But I think we're also very practical and realistic people. Like, for us, we think about let's focus on now, right? Like let's focus on what we can do now, and then we can work towards that future. So our roadmap is split into 3 phases, and each phase is like an incremental step above the next. Like we're not going to come out saying we're going to do like on-chain order books, and we're going to have capital efficiency, and we're going to solve like the ID problem to under collateralized loans, right? I think that's just not very realistic. So phase 1 is just all about taking the AMM model that we all know and improving it. So like, not making it huge drastic changes, but just making like small incremental improvements. That's like what we say, learning to walk before we run. Phase 2 is the next evolution, right? So we are about DeFi, and we want to offer more DeFi products. So we're going to offer lending, and even for that, we're not going to create a whole new lending protocol. There's just so many already like present on Ethereum BSC. that it's just unnecessary for us to do so. So, you know, we're gonna take existing ones and then add it to our platform. But the last phase is like where I guess, you know, it's the most exciting phase, right? It's like where we actually think, okay, what can we do? Like, I mean, for us, we know that's where we're most excited about, but we also want to keep things like steady, not like raise our expectations too high. But the last phase is about like making new DeFi primitives, because DeFi is still a very young space. There's a lot of problems that we need to solve still, like impermanent loss. Like people have these solutions, you know, like Bancor has one, I think Elk has one, but whether they work or not is still an open question. On-chain order books, people have been talking about as limit orders. These are still things that still need to be solved. So yeah, I mean, ultimately Trader Joe will be like a place where we will do DeFi research. But for now, at least whilst we're still in the first phase, we're just going to learn how to like walk before we run.
Yeah, I must say I like that. Like improving like really your core product over immediately differentiating into to, you know, building other stuff on top of it. I do like that. Maybe one last question before we close it out, unless you have any further comments as well. Let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem, because you've mentioned you have a partnership with Avalanche, with Verso, and you've also mentioned in this video with Elk to do the dual farm. But also, of course, you have competitors, and you have other things that are, you know, launching at the same time that also offer some sort of lending app, something close to what you're planning to do in the second phase. How do you see like the role of the ecosystem in like the further growth of Joe? Maybe I want to throw out there, but
so your question is, how do you see the ecosystem growing, or
no, so like what is basically the role of Joe in the ecosystem, and how is the ecosystem going to, you know, change the development of Joe? That's maybe a little bit of a deep question I just came up with. But,
yeah. Let me try and answer this best. I think right now the way that we see the ecosystem, you know, I think as a project, especially if you're a DEX or yield farming project, you know, there are certain metrics you're always judged by, like liquidity is the main one. And sometimes like, you know, people worry, oh, like I need to have the liquidity, I don't want to give it to another project. And I think I touched upon this in one of my tweet threads, like this whole idea of token staking silos. Sometimes, you know, I think that it's good to have your token staked in other places other than your own platform. And we're very much like, we would love Joe to be a farm on other platforms, you know, not just on Trader Joe. I mean, you know, maybe we'll lose a bit of liquidity, but that's fine, you know. Like I think it also gives our token holders a chance, an option, because, you know, making them always like incentivizing them to always stay on our platform probably is not the best thing for us as a whole on the long run. So that's very much like the way that we're taking things. Like we are very much about partnerships. You know, we've been speaking to pretty much every project out there. I mean, I haven't spoken to every project, but most projects, and not just projects, like even, you know, guys at Ava Labs, guys like you, Omer, Roger. You know, I think yeah, it's important to always just be talking to people and getting to know them, especially over a call. You know, it's really hard when you're chatting to someone over Telegram. A lot of things that you know, get miscommunicated, especially since like people from different countries, right? And sometimes like, you know, you might have an impression about a certain person or project, but once you hop on a call with them, you're like, whoa, this is like way cool, you know? I mean, one example is like Verso. I didn't know much about them, to be honest. I knew the CFI DeFi bridge, but we hopped on a call with their CEO, Gregor. And, you know, I was lucky to get the VIP presentation, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, like the fact that they have this like existing fintech payments platform that's already accessed and the KYC'd as well by like millions of users in Southeast Asia. All they need to do is just like add the DeFi part, and actually every project in Avalanche when they do that, every project on Avalanche will have access to that. You know, that's like beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, they're very interesting and very ambitious, I feel. But indeed, when they announced that the partnership with the central finance, whatever, what do we call it again nowadays? Traditional finance. I think that's very interesting in the link. Cool, man.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I had for you. If there's any last comments from your side?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think yeah, I think a lot of people are skeptical, and rightly so, about Trader Joe. We are, you know, I think we like to do things differently. We're not like, sometimes we're a bit bold, sometimes we might be a little bit polarizing. But I hope that people will be, you know, first of all, I think we put a lot of expectation, you know, having this hype marketing and kind of polarizing message.
Yeah.
But I hope that when people see our product, they use it, we can win them over. And also, I think like at the moment, people don't really know Murloc and myself. And they always compare like, oh, you know, like guys at Pangolin, Harry Seldon, best coder, like, you know, they're very well known in the Avalanche community. You know, they started Sherpa and stuff. But like in our defense, I think we're all in the same playing field, to be honest. We're very much both first-time founders or first-time leads of crypto projects. I mean, yes, they've also founded Sherpa, but you know, Sherpa is still hasn't launched, right? So you can't really determine the success yet. So, you know, I think people who are like kind of doubting us, I mean, that's fine, they're entitled to their opinion, but I think you know, I think that we're both on the same playing field here, and I think that we can challenge them for sure. You know, like just because we don't have the reputation of Pangolin doesn't mean that we can't compete with them.
Yeah. Great message to close on, and indeed, completely agree with the message. I think then what's good for everyone to know is just try it out. Try out Trader Joe launching tomorrow. Tomorrow when this video goes live. Also, definitely migrate your pool so you can get your hat. I will definitely be trying very hard to get mine. And thank you very much, Fish, for your time today, and best of luck.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you, Cedar.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.